400 million euros just locked the United States out of Europe's energy future. 200 million from Germany. 200 million from Canada. 300 megawatts of electrolysis capacity in Newfoundland, shipping renewable hydrogen directly across the Atlantic to German industrial giants. Zero American involvement, zero US technology, zero Washington approval needed. Tonight, how Newfoundland became Europe's hydrogen supplier and why American LNG just lost its future market. January 15, 2026. The European Commission cleared a German state aid scheme worth $400 million for hydrogen infrastructure connecting Canada and Germany. Teresa Ribera, Executive Vice President for Clean Transition, called it necessary to meet growing European demand for renewable fuels. This isn't symbolic. This is legally binding approval. Money can flow, contracts can be signed, construction can begin. And notice what the Commission emphasized: reducing dependence on Russian fossil fuels, accelerating clean transition, supporting the Repower EU plan. Every justification points away from American natural gas toward Canadian renewable hydrogen. Here's what Europe is actually getting: 300 megawatts of electrolysis capacity in Newfoundland, splitting water into hydrogen using electricity. Newfoundland runs on 95% hydroelectric power. Churchill Falls generates 5,400 megawatts. Muskrat Falls adds 824 megawatts. Massive hydro installations powering hydrogen production without emissions. This 300 megawatt capacity produces roughly 15,000 tons of renewable hydrogen per year. That hydrogen gets converted to ammonia for transport. Stable, non-explosive, easy to ship in standard chemical tankers. It arrives in Germany at Wilhelmshaven or Brunsbüttel terminals, gets converted back to hydrogen, and feeds directly into industrial facilities. German steel industry alone needs millions of tons annually to replace coal in blast furnaces. ThyssenKrupp is converting its Duisburg plant to hydrogen direct reduction. Salzgitter is building hydrogen-based production. BASF's chemical complex in Ludwigshafen is planning hydrogen feedstock replacement. All need reliable supply. This Canadian capacity addresses real market demand with binding offtake agreements. First deliveries arrive by 2030, exactly when German industries face mandatory emission reduction deadlines. Germany designed a clever funding mechanism. Canadian producers bid the minimum price they need per kilogram. German industrial buyers bid the maximum they'll pay. Government funding fills the gap. This creates genuine price discovery with competitive market mechanisms, bridging current costs and future economies of scale. The auction concludes in 2027. Winners must meet strict European criteria for renewable hydrogen, additionality requirements ensuring new renewable capacity, temporal correlation matching production to renewable generation hour by hour, geographical correlation keeping electricity generation near hydrogen facilities. German government estimates 2.47 million tons of CO2 emissions avoided annually. That equals one coal-fired power plant running continuously, or 500,000 cars removed from roads permanently. Significant climate impact from a single $400 million investment. Location suddenly matters in ways that reshape Atlantic energy trade. Newfoundland sits halfway between Canada and Europe, closer to Ireland than to Vancouver, closer to Lisbon than to Los Angeles. For decades, this was a disadvantage. Hydrogen trade flips that equation completely. Shipping costs from Newfoundland to Europe are lower than from the US Gulf Coast. Fewer days at sea, less fuel consumed, lower transport emissions. The port of Come by Chance already handles chemical tankers. Infrastructure exists. Converting to ammonia exports requires modifications, not construction from scratch, saving years and billions in capital. Compare this to American alternatives. Hydrogen production would happen in the Southwest using solar, or Midwest using wind. Both locations far from the Atlantic coast, both requiring extensive new port infrastructure, both facing higher shipping costs to reach European markets. Newfoundland wins on logistics before production even starts. And Canadian hydropower runs 24/7 regardless of weather. No intermittency issues, no backup power needed. Just constant renewable electricity converting to constant hydrogen production. European buyers value this reliability above everything else. Germany is building import infrastructure timed precisely to Canadian supply. Wilhelmshaven terminal on the North Sea coast is under construction now, designed specifically for ammonia imports. Massive cryogenic storage tanks, conversion facilities, pipeline connections feeding Ruhr Valley steel industry. Completion scheduled before Canadian deliveries begin. Brunsbüttel terminal on the Elbe River serves Hamburg's chemical sector, BASF operations, specialty chemical manufacturers, all converting from natural gas to hydrogen. These terminals represent billions in German infrastructure investment. Not contingency plans, primary import facilities designed around the assumption that Canadian hydrogen will flow. Notice the strategic placement. North Sea ports face the Atlantic directly. Straight shipping route from Newfoundland. No Mediterranean passage. No canal transit. No choke points. U.S. LNG terminals on the Gulf Coast are suddenly disadvantaged with longer routes, higher transport costs, and more emissions. The European Commission explicitly linked this hydrogen scheme to repower EU strategic goals. After Russia invaded Ukraine, Europe realized fossil fuel dependence creates vulnerability. Germany was especially exposed. 40% of natural gas came through pipelines from Siberia. The war ended that overnight. The United States stepped in with LNG exports, preventing immediate crisis. But LNG remains a fossil fuel, still produces emissions, still vulnerable to price volatility and supply disruptions. Europe wants energy security and climate progress simultaneously. Canadian hydrogen delivers both. Renewable production means zero emissions across the full life cycle. Newfoundland hydropower cannot be sanctioned or weaponized. Long-term contracts backed by both governments guarantee reliability. This is strategic autonomy. No dependence on Russia. No dependence on unpredictable America. No dependence on the unstable Middle East. Trump's threats to Canada actually accelerated this partnership. Every annexation comment made Europeans more eager to support Canadian alternatives. Every tariff threat reinforced European desire to diversify away from an unreliable United States. Trump created conditions for his own exclusion from European energy markets. Once infrastructure gets built, relationships become permanent. 30-year offtake contracts, billion-dollar terminal investments, industrial facilities designed around specific fuel sources cannot be easily reversed. Path dependency locks in the Canadian-European partnership. The European Union set binding targets creating guaranteed demand. The Renewable Energy Directive mandates 42% of hydrogen used in industry must be renewable by 2030, increasing to 60% by 2035. Not aspirational goals, legal requirements with penalties for non-compliance. German industry currently uses hydrogen from natural gas reforming, which creates emissions and doesn't count toward renewable targets. It must be replaced with genuinely clean hydrogen or face fines and regulatory consequences. Canadian renewable hydrogen qualifies under European criteria, with strict life cycle assessment proving 70% emission reduction minimum. American natural gas cannot meet these requirements. Even American renewable hydrogen faces questions about regulatory compliance and long-term commitment given political volatility. European buyers cannot risk contracts with suppliers whose government might reverse climate policies every election. For Newfoundland and Labrador, this represents economic transformation. Population 540,000. Unemployment historically high. Young workers leaving for opportunities elsewhere. Offshore oil declining. The province desperately needs economic diversification. Hydrogen industry provides 500 construction jobs, building electrolysis facilities over 2 to 3 years with good wages and skills training. Then 200 permanent operations jobs, process engineers, maintenance technicians, safety specialists, careers offering long-term stability, serving European contracts lasting decades. As offshore oil production winds down, hydrogen production ramps up. Workers transition from one energy sector to another with similar skill sets and expertise, a natural progression from old economy to new. This Canadian hydrogen deal represents the third scheme the European Commission approved for renewable hydrogen imports. December 2021, first approval. December 2024, second approval. January 2026, this third approval specifically for Canada. A pattern is emerging. The European Union is systematically building hydrogen import infrastructure, diversifying suppliers, creating competitive markets. Canada features prominently with renewable resources, political stability, regulatory alignment with European standards, and willingness to meet strict compliance requirements. The United States is conspicuously absent from all approved schemes. Why? American hydrogen production is mostly from natural gas reforming with carbon capture, which creates emissions even with capture technology and doesn't meet European renewable criteria. Even American renewable hydrogen faces skepticism due to regulatory uncertainty, political volatility, and grid infrastructure challenges. Canada offered what Europe needed: clean hydrogen from a stable partner committed to climate action. The United States offered what Europe is trying to eliminate. The Commission approved Canadian projects and ignored American alternatives. The market signal is impossible to misunderstand. American natural gas had a clear path to European energy dominance. Geography favored the U.S. Infrastructure already existed. Trump destroyed that future with remarkable efficiency. Tariffs pushed Canada toward European partnerships. Threats against NATO allies made Europe seek alternatives. Withdrawal from the Paris Agreement made American fossil fuels politically toxic. By the time any future American administration tries rebuilding European relationships, the damage will be permanent. Canadian hydrogen infrastructure will be operational. German industrial facilities will be converted. 30-year contracts will be signed. European energy security will be guaranteed through Canadian supply. The United States excluded itself through its own actions. Canadian hydrogen is flowing to Europe. American natural gas is searching for diminishing markets. And the strategic disaster continues to unfold.